I'm going to start now. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar entitled Multidisciplinary Action Projects at Michigan Ross. We're going to give folks a few minutes to log on to the webinar, so if you just hold tight, we'll get started in 3 minutes. Thank you. All right, thank you so much. Again, welcome to today's or this evening's webinar, Multidisciplinary Action Projects at Michigan Ross. We're honored to have you on this webinar, and we look forward to sharing more about action-based learning and how it impacts our students here at Ross. So first off, what I wanted to do was to orient you to your screen. On the right-hand side, you should see a control panel. You'll also see a question box. If you have questions throughout the webinar, feel free to ask those questions or post those questions. We'll have some time to do Q&A at the end of the webinar, and so we'll answer those questions also throughout. We might even answer via chat in that chat box. So if everyone really quickly can, in that question box, if you could just type in there just to tell me that you can hear, or just confirm that you can hear. Okay, great, perfect. And confirm that you can see the slides. Okay, great. So awesome. So first off, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Brian Johnson. I'm Senior Associate Director of Admissions, Diversity, and Inclusion at the Ross School of Business for the full-time MBA program. I'm also an alum of the program. Very excited to be joined on this call by my colleague, Amy. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Brian. I'm Amy Hunter, and I work with the Office of Action-Based Learning. Our team helps to support the MAP program and also another action learning initiative, the Living Business Leadership Experience, which we'll cover a little bit later. Just for myself, I've been with Michigan Ross and specifically with this office, OABL as we refer to it, because we're all about acronyms. I've been here for 7 years, so I've seen a lot of the changes and been really excited to see our program expand over the years.
Great. Okay, so let's just really quickly, by way of overview, we always understand that as you're viewing these webinars, you're looking at Ross, and you're also doing research on other top MBA programs, so that's great. What you'll find in top MBA programs is that we all do things somewhat similarly and somewhat differently, and we joke that sometimes you look at our websites and they look all the same. So just to highlight our key differentiators, if you learn best by doing, Ross is the best school that you can go to. So we focus on experience-driven learning. We say when you go blue, you can go anywhere. We speak about that in terms of career, but then also just the true global nature of the program, and we'll talk about that as it pertains to some of the programs and experiences that we're going to highlight today. And then also just our close-knit community. We definitely have a team environment here at Ross. We have a pay-it-forward culture where we basically believe that it's our job to help one another to succeed, and that we celebrate one another's accomplishments and help one another through tough times as well. So you won't find more passionate alumni and current students than you find at Ross, and much of that is due to the close-knit community. So as we talk about action-based learning or experience-driven learning, you may have seen this acronym REAL. Contrary to popular belief, REAL isn't a specific program. REAL is an umbrella of programs, and it's an acronym that stands for Ross Experiences in Action-Based Learning. So understanding that at Ross, we believe that the best way to learn business is by actually doing business. We're the only top business school where you can learn business by starting businesses in real time, and advising in businesses in real time, investing in businesses in real time, and actually leading businesses in real time. And on this slide, you'll see several of our opportunities and programs that fall under each of these categories. Today, we're going to focus on the Multidisciplinary Action Project, which is MAP, and the Living Business Leadership Experience, or LBLE for short. So if you have any questions about any of these other programs, you can feel free to contact us, and we can share more information about those as well. So first off, Multidisciplinary Action Project. So one thing about the MAP program is it's over 25 years old, and as you look at other business school offerings, there are some that actually look like MAP on their faces, but MAP is actually quite different. What makes it different is that it's actually 7 weeks full-time with no other courses. So this experience takes place in the last 7 weeks of your first year, where you're after you've taken all of your core courses, such as your accounting, your finance, your operations, your strategy, your economics, etc. You're going to then leave class and actually spend 7 weeks full-time with a real company on a real strategic initiative. Last year we had 86 projects and 32 to countries, and half of these projects are typically international or have some type of international component. So when we talk about Go Blue, Go Anywhere, that kind of speaks to the global nature. And one of the MAP is one of the main reasons why most of our students do have some type of international experience while at Ross, and part of that is because students don't have to pay. So sponsors pay all the travel costs, which is very good. At some other schools, they'll have international components, but students have to come out of pocket and pay. That's not the case with MAP. So I will actually hand it over to Amy to talk a little bit more about MAP.
Thank you. Some slide with this. So this map here just has a somewhat of a representation to show all the different places that we have hosted MAP projects. We're all over the world, all over North America. We've been in South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, had some projects in the Southeast Pacific last year. So we are literally all over the world. On the next slide, here's a representation of some of the very recognizable company names and logos that you're probably already familiar with. And one thing to keep in mind is our projects are really diverse. We have projects with big multinational corporations, also a lot of entrepreneurial projects, and then even nonprofit or working with government agencies. So the ones you see on the screen here are mainly domestic companies, and we did have some of those same like big names that hosted projects in some international locations this year. And then we also worked with maybe lesser known to our U.S. students, but projects that were really impactful in other countries. One example was Tecton Labs. It's a tech consulting startup in Lima, Peru. And the team there designed a new career development platform that applies artificial intelligence to analyze community-based data. So they spent 2 weeks in Lima meeting with the key stakeholders for the project and also interviewing some customers and even some competitors in the area. Another international project is SST. That took place in India, and that was actually brought to us partnership through our Ross CK Prahalad initiative, and it was working with a social arm of TVS Motor Company. And this was, what they wanted to do was to look at a metric to measure the women empowerment initiatives in the area and identify the drivers of empowerment in the rural villages. So the team of students spent 3 weeks in rural villages of India, meeting with women there and talking to them about how these programs are impacting their lives. So just a small sampling of the 86 projects that we had last year. And then for more of a deep dive into MAP, I wanted to explain really what the course brings to the students who participate. So first of all, MAP is the advised component of that REAL framework that we mentioned earlier. And so this is a situation where the students are working with a team of their peers, and they're doing a real-world consulting project for, as I mentioned, either a corporate, entrepreneurial, or nonprofit partner organization. So the key skills you'll be able to put into practice are, first of all, dealing with ambiguity. The teams are given a brief problem statement from the sponsor, and your job as a team is to figure out a realistic scope of work that you can accomplish in 7 weeks. So this is going to be something that is meaningful to you as a learning opportunity and also provides a good return on investment for your sponsor. This is not like a case study where you have a set of choices laid out for you and there isn't just one right answer. It's about hypothesis testing and providing good recommendations and action steps to help your sponsor organization advance the goals of their business. You get to structure the project and make recommendations and deal with all of the ambiguity and the imperfect data that comes with that. Another skill that is really developed here is working with a very diverse team. The teams are 4 to 6 of your classmates, which you may not know very well. Here at Michigan Ross, you typically take your core classes with your section. So those people you get to know really well, and then you're teamed up on projects with people that are from outside of that section. There's a lot of diversity from the academic, personal, and professional experiences that everyone brings to the project, and this really just converges in your MAP team. The next piece is the stakeholder management. So in the course of the project, you're managing relationships with your team members, with your project sponsors, and also your faculty advisors. This people piece is one of the big growth edges that comes with MAP. Getting to lead in an environment where there's not an established hierarchy is a huge learning opportunity. And then finally, a chance to practice your communication skills by developing a final presentation, really a narrative for how you chose the recommendations that you did, and practicing what it means to present to executives. These are the people who are at a C-suite level, and they need to understand not only what you're recommending, but how you got there, and to convince them that this solution is worth investing in and carrying forward. So this is an opportunity to actually present to people at this level and polish your own oral and written presentation skills. I want to also talk about the support that our teams receive. So first of all, as Brian mentioned, there is full financial support from the sponsor company. The time that you spend on site at a company for the project, and this could be anywhere from 1 or 2 weeks, even as long as 5 weeks. But this is all covered by the sponsor. So just as a business trip would be, your travel expenses, your hotel, and your meals while you're on site are all covered for you. And then also there's a whole ecosystem of learning support within Ross to help you successfully achieve the goals of this learning experience. It starts with your faculty advisor who helps guide the work and tends to ask those disruptive questions to get you to think more deeply about the project and the content. There are communication faculty who help you hone all of your final deliverables and think about how you're going to present this information in your own way. A librarian who will help you unearth some of the secondary research and give you some recommendations about how to frame and structure the primary research that you'll be doing in your project. Also, a team process coach. So this is a second-year MBA student who has been in your shoes and gone through the experience themselves, and they're there to guide you about how the team will operate, what roles each person will fill on the team, leadership goals, and this is on a personal level as well as for the whole team that you would want to pursue. And then finally, the Office of Action-Based Learning, that's my office, and we help with the administrative side of things, the logistics, problem solving, and ensuring that there's good communication between all of the stakeholders that I just described.
Well, great. Great. That all sounds great. One question that I was going to ask, Amy, and I didn't even prepare you for this, so we're going to see how this works. One question that people often ask me on the road is if they can create their own MAP project, or do we have to, or do they have to select from the projects that we have? Can you talk a little bit about the number of projects that students have to choose from, but then also a little bit about the process that the sponsors have to go through, or how we're vetting the projects to make sure that they're actual curricular.
Yeah, that's a really good point. To be honest, we come up with a lot of projects, and we find that some of the most successful ones are the ones that are brought to us with our own alumni. The alumni connection is really strong, and I think the fact that they've gone through MAP before as a student and then have reached a level at their company where they can get buy-in from the executive level to host a whole team of MBA students, they really understand what the learning objectives are. So at the end, when we present the projects to the students, we have over 100 choices. And like I mentioned, this is anywhere from those top brand name multinational companies to small startups. We're talking maybe a handful of people, and nonprofits that are all over the world. So I I think the best learning opportunity really comes from when we have that connection, that they understand the learning objectives and they have enough people to really support a full team. We do find that if an organization is too small, it's just a little overwhelming for them and also for the team. It's nice to wear a couple different hats with a smaller organization, and that's really accomplished, I think, with some of our entrepreneurial opportunities.
Absolutely. I always like to bring that up too, because MAP is actually part of the curriculum. It's not just, we talk about the similarities to internships, but it isn't just an internship. It is academic. So the fact that we have this office with people who have experience qualifying different projects so that our students will be able to use what they're learning in the classroom really makes it a learning opportunity and an opportunity to take what you've been learning in the classroom and make it part of your skill set. So I did want to highlight that. So we also, we gave an overview, but it's best to hear from the students. So we have a couple students here who just finished MAP in the spring, or who will give you an overview of their project. So we'll start with Sarah.
Perfect. Thanks, Brian. So hi all. My name is Sarah Levy, and I am an MBA 2 here at the Ross School of Business. For my MAP project, we were working with Kaiser Permanente in their Mid-Atlantic region. And for those who aren't familiar, Kaiser is a large integrated health system, meaning that they own both the insurance and the care delivery side of the business. Kaiser noticed that they were getting a disproportionately large amount of unnecessary emergency room visits from members who were formally aligned with one specific clinic location. And this clinic was actually equipped with a very high-tech urgent care center that could care for almost any and all non-life-threatening emergencies. But Kaiser members were just not using it and instead opting for a more time-intensive and expensive for them and for Kaiser visit to the ER at a nearby hospital. So we worked primarily with the outside medical spend team at Kaiser, and they asked us to investigate this approximately $10 million per year problem for them and come up with some short and long-term strategies that they could implement to try and curb some of this unnecessary usage of the emergency room. And so I think one of my favorite parts of MAP was actually being able to go on site for about 10 days to meet with physicians and administrators and nurses who dealt with the patients on a daily basis and had more insight into how patients were actually thinking about and approaching their healthcare. This was all really helpful information to bring back to Ann Arbor as we brainstormed through the root causes of this issue. And I personally really enjoyed being in Ann Arbor for the majority of MAP because it gave us the ability to speak with a lot of professors here at Ross and in the broader University of Michigan faculty. And it also gave us a lot of time to spend as a team. I really enjoyed my team. We came from incredibly diverse backgrounds, everywhere from HR to finance, and even had a dentist on our team. And leaning on them during our working sessions was great because we were just able to get a much broader and more diverse set of ideas, things that I never would have thought about, just by myself. And actually, during one of those ideation sessions, we came up with an idea which became one of our final deliverables that I'm most proud of, which is actually a regression model that would predict pretty closely a member's likelihood of going to the ER unnecessarily by looking at a large array of risk factors. And so, being able to deliver something like that to Kaiser for a multi-million-dollar issue that they're experiencing was just a fantastic result for us. And I would say we worked pretty hard, but in the end, Kaiser was a great sponsor, and they were really happy with the work that we were able to do in the 7 weeks that we were with them, and actually have since let us know that several of our recommendations are or are soon to be underway.
Yeah, great. I had the opportunity to watch your presentation. I've been bragging about it all across the country. So the regression model was really impressive. So congratulations. Next, we have Rima Fadlala.
Hey everyone, I'm Rima Fadlala, and my project was in Miami, Florida with the Miami Dolphins. So a lot of us know the Miami Dolphins as a football team, and we actually were working on launching the first ever Miami Open in the Hard Rock Stadium. So if anyone is familiar with the Miami Open tennis tournament, it's usually held in Key Biscayne. But this year, because of different plans that they had for just the space, they were looking at, so that they launched it at the Hard Rock Stadium instead. And so the Miami Dolphins wanted a team to get to know what the guest experience and tournament execution was like and develop strategies to improve on those things for the 2020 Miami Opens and beyond. And so I was in a team of 6 people who, like Sarah said, extremely diverse in professional background, extremely diverse in personal and ethnic background as well, which was actually my favorite part of MAP, was just working with people who I wouldn't have otherwise maybe worked with while I was at Ross, and really understanding my strengths as a leader. Something that we talk about a lot at Michigan is what we call the Michigan model of leadership, and they help you understand what leadership and personality styles you have that you can lean into and I guess identify as an area of growth. And so my personality and leadership style is more of an idea person, but I was met with other people in my group who were what we call drivers, the people who really bring those ideas into action. And I think the activities that we had before our project had us talk about those things in a very transparent way, so that when we got to Miami, we were able to lean into those things instead of trying to pressure each other to be more like one another. I was really appreciative of the opportunity to understand how I fit in to a team that's very diverse. And so while we were on site, we were in Miami for 3 weeks. We were at the tournament every single day. I'm actually not a tennis fan, contrary to what the picture shows on the bottom, but it was really awesome to see what an event to that level entails. And other people in my group were super invested in tennis, and so that was really fun to see that we had the opportunity to go watch some of the bigger matches. But we were in Miami for 3 weeks. We were working with C-suite executives at the Miami Dolphins. Our midpoint presentation was actually my favorite part, because before we left back to Ann Arbor, we delivered to a boardroom. Super intimidating at first, but we were so well prepared. And the CEO basically told us that he's like, I've seen a lot of these in my years, and I can honestly say that this is one of the best presentations I've ever seen. So we were like super happy coming back to Ann Arbor before they flew us back out for the final, which was great quality as well. But overall, being so a little different from Sarah, being away from Ann Arbor was something that I really enjoyed. It was nice to kind of see what a lot of the lessons that we were learning on campus, how that could be applied outside of that. And I think it was a great way to kick off my summer internship with that tangible real work experience that helped me be better for the summer.
Awesome. So, Rima, you actually asked a good question or you made a statement that leads me to a question. So as you think about that MAP experience, how did that help to prepare you for success in your internship, or were there any kind of key takeaways that you really were able to leverage right away?
Yeah. So anything something as simple as learning to type an email to somebody who is who you might not have met in the organization but need to partner with on something, like something as tangible as like, what do I say first and how do I structure this ask? Anywhere from that to, like I said, something more introspective about my leadership style. So I was able to, in my summer internship, really understand and lean into the things that were my strengths, and then call out early on the areas of growth that I wanted to develop. So I don't think I would have had that foresight had I not walked out of MAP kind of having practice in those 2 things.
Great. How about you, Sarah?
Yeah, definitely. So as Rima mentioned, I am actually a blue on the Michigan model of leadership, which is much more focused on efficiency and really driving deliverables. But I was at a startup this summer. So being a part of my MAP team and working with people who were more entrepreneurial and more creative and ideas driven was a great precursor to my internship, because it really allowed me to understand that mindset more, and going into a startup space where that is everywhere. That was really important, and I very much appreciated the map experience for that reason.
So a question that we often get is, how do you get to select those projects? Can you guys talk a little bit about what you remember about the selection process, and kind of how do you think you ended up getting the projects that you wanted, or that you got?
So as Amy mentioned, there are no shortage of projects to choose from, and so it was kind of overwhelming in a positive way, because you sign on at the point where you are able to rank your projects, and there's about, I think, over 100 at first, and you're looking through these projects, and there's a blurb about each one. You kind of have an idea of how long the project will be, how much of that time you will be spending away, whether you're staying for the final presentation or going, like all of those. There's just so many different factors that can help drive your decision. My priority was to be, I knew I would learn from any project. My priority was to be away from campus for as long as possible. And so that landed me with 5 top choices that would enable me to travel and like really immerse myself in a company culture for longer than 3 weeks. That's what I wanted. So I put the Miami Dolphins as my first, actually, and that was because I would be in Miami for 4 weeks total, but also because my background is in education, but I'm pivoting into entertainment and digital media, and that was one of the entertainment and digital media projects that was super interesting to me. And so they basically, at the time where they were ready to reveal which map projects we had our huge reveal where there were about 400 to 500 of us in the Winter Garden, the central area at Ross. And at the same exact time, we had an envelope where we looked at what our map project was. And I think my team was like the loudest by far, because my teammates were huge tennis fans, so they were really excited to be witnessing that. I was just excited to be going to Miami. So it was just an amazing, very, very memorable experience. I still have that envelope actually at home, just because that memory was something I'll definitely remember in 10 years.
Yeah. How about you, Sarah?
I also have that envelope at home. When I was ranking projects, I actually listened to this webcast when I was a prospective student. So I remember someone saying on there that they really treated MAP like another chance to have an internship. And so I knew that I wanted to go into the healthcare space, into the industry side. And so my main focus was really on industry, making sure that I was going to be working on a healthcare-focused project. And so I think that was my first criteria. And then my second criteria was really just looking at, the projects where I thought, this would be a chance for me to really stretch and grow my skill set. My particular project was actually listed as an ops-focused scope, and my background is in strategy, so I figured that picking something that was maybe outside of my normal wheelhouse would really give me the ability to see what Kaiser was really about. And I think maybe a little bit different than Rima. I was pretty location agnostic. I didn't really care that much. I just wanted to find something that fit my industry.
Yeah. No, and I love those examples, and I didn't even know that's what you were going to say. But what's really nice is it illustrates this this kind of phenomenon that happens where you have 100 different projects, right? And you all rank them, but you're ranking them based on different criteria. Some people will say, well, how do I know that I'm going to get this? And we don't guarantee that you're going to get your top project, but in most cases there are several projects that people are really excited about, and when we do have that reveal, I've been in that reveal several years in a row. I will say this year there was like the most audible gasp and cheering ever. So Amy and your team did a really good job with the algorithm or whatever it is that you all use. But different people are looking for different things, and because of that, everybody's top 5 is going to be the same. So that's great. Let's talk a little bit about challenges. So what was the biggest challenge, or what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced in the MAP process?
Yeah, I can kick it off. I think the main challenge for our team was actually scope. Because I said it was listed under ops, we thought that that the issues would really lie more on the supply side of how Kaiser was operating their services and why that wasn't translating over into success with consumers. It turned out to be just a very wide and really complicated issue, and for us to try and address that in 7 weeks is just not feasible. And so we really had to sit down and think as a team, what can we actually tackle? What do we just give to them as here are things that you might want to look at in the future, and really just come down on something that we were comfortable with scope. And I will say that Kaiser was great about respecting sort of the limits that we had placed for our team, and didn't try and get us to move into that scope creep area at all. And so that was nice of them. I would say another challenge that we encountered for our team was just overall lack of data. We had created a lot of hypotheses, but a lot of it couldn't be tested. So I think it was kind of frustrating for us, but we, again, were just able to sort of pass those along to Kaiser as, if you want to look at these are things we might think would be affecting this overall issue. We just don't have the resources to really dig into them. So I think most of our main challenges were more data-based.
Gotcha. And so just as a very quick follow-up to that, you did run a regression model, which is very data intensive. So if you didn't have a lot of data, how were you able to develop such a robust model?
So that model was actually based off of patient data that we were able to get. I think a lot of the data that I was referencing was just in the hypotheses that we had, we weren't able to get supporting data for to actually test them out and make sure that they were driving things or if they were just sort of there and ideas. And so we had a lot of support from Kaiser in trying to get the data that we needed, but because it is a healthcare company and because data is very sensitive, they couldn't just pass everything off to us. So they did their best to give us, everything that we needed. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get it all.
Got it. Perfect. How about you, Rima?
So our problems were more, team dynamic issues. And we had a large team, 6 people, everyone obviously different personality style. And so there were moments just by virtue of us being in Miami for so long, being around each other for so long, where we had challenging communication issues or people had different expectations of what we should be delivering. And it was honestly one of the biggest growth moments for me, understanding how to work with people who might have thought differently about what a process should look like. And I think what we did right was have frequent communication about those issues instead of just letting them fester. Any business school program, anyone who's in an MBA program can tell you that group dynamics are going to be an issue regardless. You're working in groups with people that you haven't necessarily chosen, and so there are a lot of competing priorities. But I think when I was at Ross for the year before MAP, you can still go back home and vent to your friends or your family, but when you're in a city and those are really the only people you kind of have to be confronted with that issue and learn how to deal with it. So I was very grateful for us having those challenging conversations when we needed to have them. And it was very interesting how during our final presentation, it seemed like everybody's unique strengths just shone through. And I walked away from that feeling very close to my MAP team. We're actually going out for a reunion dinner next week. And so our problems were things that are just basic human problems, but the challenge and the takeaway makes me a better person and a better professional moving forward.
Absolutely. I almost feel like this is scripted. That's perfect. Because we talk about MAP and we talk about some of the transferable skills, and you two can probably attest to going on an internship. You do have to kind of decide on a scope of your project when you're working with the company. You do have to be able to influence without power. You need to be able to work between people, and that's kind of the beauty of MAP. So that's great. Well, thank you so much. We're going to have some Q&A, but I do want to get to the next thing, which is the living business leadership experience. So I'll hand it back over to Amy.
Yes. So LBLE, as we refer to it, had actually started as an initiative by the dean as part of that REAL framework that we talked about earlier. And so this, and LBLE is the lead a business part of that framework. And it really was meant to take MAP almost to the next level. With MAP, the team ends up delivering these recommendations and an action plan, and LBLE is more of an opportunity to take it from that stage and move it into execution. So this is actually a 3-credit elective course, and it's a combination of MBA 2 students and BBA seniors. So it's a really unique opportunity to work together. This is yet another of our action-based learning courses, and this is yet another opportunity to really immerse yourself in an actual business environment. The difference is here, students are spearheading a high-impact business initiative for sponsor companies, and they're doing the work to both establish and grow these new business opportunities. One question to consider is why this course as far as other electives, and really the answer is it's got a complete wraparound curriculum to support experiential learning, and it involves a lot of different academic components, such as enterprise business models, performance management, turnover planning, since these projects don't end in one semester. Sponsors can actually elect to continue it on, and students can elect to move on to the next phase and take the course in another semester. And also, in partnership with our Sanger Leadership Center, the leadership model that was already referenced earlier is another big component, looking at your leadership development. Team dynamics, also a big part of this. And then giving and receiving peer-to-peer feedback is really valuable. This whole course provides another opportunity for students to hone their leadership skills. And again, the unique opportunity to work in an interdisciplinary and intergenerational cross-functional team, and to manage those workforce transitions. So when a team is wrapping up at the end of the term, this project is going to continue forward, and the whole team may not transition with that project. So they set up the information to be passed on to that next team. Just as in MAP, the communication piece of learning how to communicate and influence multiple stakeholders on the project, and moving from that strategy phase into the real implementation of that strategy, which involves a lot of change and being flexible. So executing that strategy, you're going to be testing, learning, innovating, and pivoting along the way. It's really a chance to act as an entrepreneur. You're establishing and running real profitable enterprises, and this could be a new product line, or even a new functional unit within an existing organization. And it's really about being at the table with the company partners, the people who are making the decisions, and really grappling with some of the messiness that comes as part of that, the ambiguity, and just the fast-changing nature of business. I did want to look at some of our partners here just to highlight them. We have NRP, which is a real estate group out of Cleveland. FuelU is a technology company. Shinola, who more people maybe have heard of, is more of that lifestyle luxury brand retailer. And Warmaloo is more of a social impact type of organization, working with healthcare products for different uses. So those are just some of our partners. And for example, Shinola has been with us through several terms now, and it just gets better every year.
Yeah, and this is just a fantastic program. I remember when the dean announced it, I thought that it was never going to happen. Honestly, full transparency, I didn't understand how companies would allow students to actually have the type of control that they do have, and have the seat at the table and that opportunity to learn. But it's been very useful. One thing that I'll ask you this question: there are different size companies here,
Yes.
right? And there is also a link between MAP and this and LBLE in some cases. Can you talk a little bit about that, the link between MAP and LBLE?
Sure. So most of these partners start out hosting a MAP team, and that's just one way to get a feel for what this type of engagement is all about. So the MAP teams are typically 4 to 6 students, and for some of these smaller organizations, the teams moving forward are not going to be a whole lot bigger than that. But as a project moves along into different phases, it's not uncommon to start with 4 to 6 students, and the next semester that this engagement takes place, then it moves on to 12 students, and then it moves on to 18. And those students can be working on different segments within the project. So there's still plenty of work to go around, plenty of different experiences for all the students involved on such a big team.
Great. Awesome. Well, that's perfect. I think that's a great transition to some questions, and thanks to those who have asked questions. So let's see. So I think this pertains to MAP. So Amy, you talked about the different companies. Are the companies the same from year to year?
We do have a lot of repeat sponsors. I can think of a bunch off the top of my head, but I think in order to really get projects that are meaningful to the companies, not everyone participates year after year, and we don't want the same kind of projects year after year. So that changes. Even though we have some sponsors that come back to us, we get fresh ones and new ones every year, especially in the entrepreneurial space, just because there are just a lot of fast changes there. But in order to really cover enough different kinds of industries and different kinds of projects, we like to say we start from zero every year. We can never predict what the big name projects are going to be, but we do have a lot of faithful partners.
Got it. And this is another question that I didn't prepare you for, so forgive me, because it just came to mind. So, what I've noticed over time with MAP projects is that we as tech has started to get more popular, we have more technology projects. As environmental sustainability gets more popular, there just seems to be more. Is that like an intentional thing, or are we just finding that more of our alums are referring those companies to our MAP office, and we're able to offer those to students?
I would say it's a good combination of both. We do try to understand what it is our students are looking for, because these opportunities are getting them ready to move on to internships and jobs. We want them to be in industries, reflecting industries that they're interested in. But certainly the trend for tech is, first of all, it's something that we might look for, and something that we talk to our alumni about, that bring us a lot of projects. But then it's also reflected in the types of projects that different companies come up with. So it may not necessarily be a tech company, but they want to develop a digital marketing strategy, for example, and so it becomes a tech-related project, but maybe in a different industry. So I feel like that serves students that want different things out of their projects.
Absolutely. Sounds a lot like recruiting in companies. There are a lot more traditional companies that have tech internship opportunities because they understand that students are interested in tech. So it might not be a tech company. That's great. So, have you received feedback from employers about the MAP program?
Would that be
or company sponsors?
Well, yes, we sure do. We check in with them halfway through the project, and then we also have them do an evaluation at the end, and we question them on a lot of different factors of the project. One of them being, are these deliverables something that you plan to implement? And that's always really gratifying. I mean, just like Sarah and Rima talked about, to learn that they took the information back to their leadership team, and it looks like it's going to solve a problem for them and gets implemented. We always like to hear that. But again, the fact that so many of our alumni are involved as sponsors now, we do get that feedback from them as well. So, and the fact that people come back to sponsor additional projects, I think is also a testament to the experience.
Absolutely. So, Sarah and Rima, we talked a little bit about the leadership and the sponsor. We've also talked about the opportunity to present to senior leadership. Can you think about some of the people that you interface with on your MAP projects? Like, what were their titles? What types of access to the organizations did you have as MAP teams?
Yeah. So we had access to pretty much everyone in the C-suite, and actually they set up meetings. Our whole first week was our MAP team meeting individually with each of the C-suite executives, and then from there developing that relationship. We asked them a lot of questions around what they saw as the areas of opportunity or the issues that they were going to face with the Miami Open. And so throughout our 3 weeks there, we would set up follow-up meetings with like the chief marketing officer, the chief finance officer, and they would give us a lot of information around I think we built our credibility to the point where they saw us as partners, and that was a really big turning point in our project where we felt, like you said earlier, there wasn't really hierarchy between us and them, and we were actually seen as people who were coming in and consulting on an issue that was meaningful to them. And so when we presented for both the midpoint and the final, an entire boardroom that seated about 25 to 30 people was entirely filled with members of the team at the Miami Dolphins. And I'm confident. I personally am not interested in working for the Miami Dolphins, but I'm confident that if that was somewhere I wanted to recruit for, to answer one of the questions I see, that would be a place that I could reach out to the connections that I've made there and continue that conversation.
What you, Sarah?
Yeah, we had really great buy-in from Kaiser just across the board. I think a lot of our stakeholders that we were talking to are extremely busy physicians and nurses who made a point to stop us as we were going through our clinic visits because they wanted to address this issue. I mean, it's not helpful for their patients to be going to the emergency room when they don't need to be. And so I think from the clinician side, we had really great buy-in. They truly wanted to see us solve this issue. And then also from the more corporate side, we, like I said, we're interfacing with the outside medical spend team, which is a part of Kaiser's internal consulting team, but had direct lines to executive vice president level members of Kaiser across all of their different lines of business. So that was really helpful in just making sure that we had sort of the leverage that we needed to really go in and ask these more difficult questions of why isn't the system that you have right now working. And so I think that was really helpful. And sort of to touch on Rima's point as well, because we got such great buy-in, we were able to talk to them so often and really make sure that our ideas were, on the right path. I think that actually one of my team members did actually recruit with them, and it did turn into a position over the summer. So I know that, the option is definitely there. They're so happy that we're there to help. And so it turned out really well for him.
Yeah. Great. And just to answer the question about how often MAP placements turn into jobs for students, because of where MAP is actually positioned in the student calendar, the vast majority of students already have internship offers. So you're not getting into the situation where people on a regular occasion are transitioning from a MAP project into an internship. To Rima's point and to Sarah's point, those contacts are made so that some students are able to go back, and we do know instances where that's happened. But just because most students already have an internship, and that's another piece at Ross, we want to really help you to land that internship before MAP, so you're not working on recruiting. That transition isn't being made a lot. So I have a question here about the different types of businesses that Ross has connections with. Really, that's going to vary year to year, which businesses and organizations that we have connections with. But I will drop an internet link into the Q&A box to show you where you can actually search and see the types of companies that have been featured by year, and then also if you just want to look at all the MAP offerings that we've had over the years. Let's see. Okay, I have a question about how do you get connected with students who have taken LBLE to hear their experiences? That's a great question. What you can do, I will send a follow-up email to everyone that's even registered, even for those who didn't attend today. That will have a replay link of this webinar, but also with my contact information. If you're interested in talking to anyone who's participated in any specific type of MAP project or even in LBLE, I'm happy to help you to do that. Let's see, we have a question about what's an example of a partnership that was not successful. That's kind of a broad question, and I think a lot of it would depend on how you define success, right? There are MAP projects that students actually do struggle on, and I don't know if you have any stories. I can talk about what makes a successful MAP team, but I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is a tough question to answer, but I would guess that a common challenge for most teams, just like Sarah had talked about, is the scope.
Yes.
And that's something we do try to really communicate is we know that it's going to take some work and we know it's going to be ambiguous. That's kind of the point. It's we don't want to lay out a problem for you that is going to be easily solved. So part of those first couple of weeks on the project is really narrowing that scope and coming up with something that is doable within the time frame of the project time. So I would say at most of the time that kind of touch point and being able to regroup and adjust that scope is the point where a project that may have a rough start actually ends up being very successful.
Yeah, I was gonna also just follow up with that. You know, team dynamics are huge in these projects, and so I know our students touched on it earlier, but there is an orientation before MAP to kind of help you to get your to set the expectations, to understand how your team members work. And they even create like a team charter and some different agreements amongst one another. But it's really up to you to execute after that happens. And where we see the most, if we want to call them unsuccessful or most challenging MAP projects, it's where the communication, to Rima's earlier point about that, it breaks down. And I know I did mention briefly that I'm an alum and I had a MAP project too. And I think one of the toughest parts is that you're on this team with 4 or 5 like super intelligent, people who are used to walking in a room and getting their way because they're the smartest person in the room, right? And you have absolutely no hierarchy and no control, and now you have to figure out one, how to influence other people, but also how to develop a certain level of humility, right? Because we're business school students, and there's that piece as well, to really open up and listen to other members of the team. So to the extent that people are able to manage that, that's where we have the success. Where we don't have success is where they're unable to do that. And then I did want to touch on one of the points that Amy made about the ambiguity of the project. This is kind of why MAP, in my opinion, is so much better than just the case method or just going in classes and talking about cases. Our students have done those as well. It's just, you're given all the data in a case. To Sarah's point, what do you do when you don't have the data? That's the real world. And so MAP does a great job at that. So I know that we're up against time, but what I want to do is I do want to thank everyone again for for participating in this webinar tonight. I will be sending a follow-up email to everyone, but we definitely wish you the best of luck. Hopefully you'll be like Sarah and go full circle and listen to this MAP webinar, and then one day be on the webinar. But again, we're just honored that you're considering Ross. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. We're very happy to do that. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much. Go Blue, and have a great night.